Odo feels what it's like to be an Arbizon vulture. Quart gives Chief and Bashir drinks on the house. And Jake just wants his dad to pass the damn potatoes already. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Cirroc Lofton.
Hello, hello.
He is the Shaq to my Ernie Johnson. He is the Mark Jackson to my Mike Breen. To know Mr. Love and Jake Sisko. I'm Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Season 3, Episode 2, Deep Space Nine, The Search, Part 2, directed by Jonathan Frakes, huh?
He's all over the place, this Jonathan Frakes guy.
Sure.
We have to look him up.
I think he's going somewhere.
I think he's going to have a career.
How you doing, man?
Good. I didn't realize Jonathan Frakes directed this one.
I hope I didn't misspeak. I guess I should check IMDb to be sure, rather than just like spouting things off like I know anything about anything.
I'm pretty sure he did, because I asked you this a while ago about if Kim Friedman directed all three parts.
Right,
and
right.
You told me that she didn't, that somebody else did this one. So I know it wasn't Kim Friedman.
Confirmed. Jonathan Frakes. What a relief.
Okay, good.
Otherwise, we'd have to start this whole thing over again.
And we were doing so well, man.
I know.
We started off so perfect.
Hey, with basketball analogies, right? Isn't it Mike Breen, the guy that does with Mark Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy?
I think so. I think you're right about that.
I mean, I'd rather you be Mark Jackson than Jeff Van Gundy. No offense.
Thank you. I appreciate that, man. You know.
Anyway, and you want
every time I think of Jeff Van Gundy, I think of him grabbing on Latrell's Primo's
I know.
legs.
That's what everybody thinks of. They just holding onto that leg and getting dragged across the court, man. That's what they all think about against the Rockets or something. Anyway,
I forgot who it was against, but yeah.
This has been Basketball Talk with Ryan and Cirroc, and everybody's rolling their eyes. So let's talk about this episode real quick.
All right.
So, pretty awesome, right? It's gotten pretty good now, starting off Season 3.
Yeah, this Season 3 is starting off great. I like what they're doing with the Dominion. I like how they're kind of giving us really good storylines. There's so much more action now happening within these stories. We're getting a lot of backstory. We're getting, development of characters like Garrick becoming really instrumental.
Not to skip ahead, but Garrick just had maybe 3 scenes. How cool was he in those 3 scenes?
I wrote down Andy Robinson is fantastic. I must have written that down. I think I've written that down a few times now, ever since he's popped up on the screen. But this was just another one of those, just like, oh God, I can't get enough of this guy. He takes really good charge of things. When he gets his mind to it and he decides that he's taking control, he's pretty convincing.
So good. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. The other one that I think stood out was, I think we got our first "don't with the Sisko" moment. When he said, "What the hell is going?" He comes guns blazing.
Yeah, that was the toughest Sisko we've seen, I think, so far.
So far.
That was him on like a 9.7 or something. Like, he was almost at full 10.
And he was saying that to an admiral who's like a much superior to him. I mean, he's a commander. He's at 3 pips. Admiral Nechayev has at least 5 pips because she's an admiral. But he's punching up. He's punching up, that guy.
Yeah, she says, "Are you done, Commander?" He says, "I haven't even begun." and he started to go hard. I was like, "Oh shit! Watch out for Sisko when he's pissed off."
Yeah, we weren't expecting that.
No, we weren't. But I enjoyed it because it just, it showed that kind of bravado. He was willing to risk it all in those kinds of moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that. I like seeing Sisko when he's on tilt. I like him showing those leadership skills and making crucial decisions when the moment arises. Like, I like that kind of stuff. Of
course, yeah. And this is when the writers start adjusting to that, because they see how well he delivers that. And I think, this is a theory on my part, not factual. They never said anything like that, but they see how well he delivers that. They see how well it fits him. They're like, okay, let's give this guy a little more beef. Let's give him a little more sauce to this guy.
I mean, well, he's, we see him fighting the Jemadar in the one scene in this where he goes swinging off. Um, he's a tough captain, and they're finally giving him something. It's funny because they actually say Captain Sisko for the first time in this episode, which I thought was pretty cool.
Which ended up not being true, but they still,
right.
You're right. I thought the same thing. That was their first little tease.
That was the first time we've heard Captain Sisko come out of anybody's mouth, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. You were right. And they said maybe even an admiralty someday. They were bribing them.
All you got to do is get down with the program, man. Sell out the Romulans.
All you have to do is take off the uniform or whatever.
Yeah. Speaking of the Romulans and this plot line, it dawned on me while I was watching this episode how similar the themes are, specifically in relation to Odo and the Founders, and watching now Picard and the synthetics. And it felt to me as if the same plight that the changelings and the Founders are having is the same thing that the synthetics are complaining about. Like, no one accepted us, and so we had to find a way. They didn't understand us. They were threatened by our presence. And so we went off and found our own little homeland. And I feel like I'm watching that exact same thing on Picard with the synthetics.
That's right.
Right?
And it's also similar in that there is a line in there that the female changeling says that is one of the few lines that I remember from the first time I watched it as a teenager. There was a line I watched, that I remember my whole life, ever since I first watched it, because it made so much sense and it helped me to just kind of understand, people and people's motives. And I don't want to misquote it. And I'll tell you after the break. The break's 18 minutes away. No, I'm just kidding. No, it is
a long break.
I can't find the exact quote, but the gist of it is, you don't have to fear what you control. They control things so that they don't. Oh yeah, here's the quote. Because what you control can't hurt you. And I remember that really stuck with me when I was a teenager, because I'm like, that is absolutely people's motivations when they try to control other people. It's because they fear being hurt. Whether it's a jealous husband that's telling their girl don't go out or whatever it is, or whether it's friends that are too controlling with other friends or whatever it is, or whether it's countries oppressing other countries, or groups of people oppressing other groups of people. It's because we fear being hurt by them. And so we try to control them as our own self-preservation out of fear. And that line really stuck with me however many years ago. And so it's great to hear it again.
Yeah, I wrote that line down in my notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was something that was poignant. What you can control can't hurt you. And, it just means so much. And then just in the various ways that you described. But the fact that line stood out with you is pretty impressive, that, it had that kind of impact when you first heard it.
Definitely did. I mean, because it really explains human nature. Like with everything in Star Trek, it explains human nature through the lens of some freaking made up alien. But really what they're doing is telling you how humans are.
Yes, they're talking about the human condition, and that's what we really get a lot of on this show. That's what I really enjoy about watching this show. There was another moment in this episode, for example, when Odo's family, his kind, were explaining to him the word changeling.
I was waiting for this to come up. This was one of the best moments.
Yeah, and I thought it was great because Odo, obviously he's like changeling. He hadn't heard, he was like a little bit taken back to hear it coming from her. And she explained to him that, that word was like a derogatory word that we've adapted.
Right.
And it just reminded me of like the N word.
That's
and
exactly
how people use that word.
I'm sure that was not an accident. I'm sure that's what they meant. Yeah.
It had to be, because the parallel is just unbelievable. but yeah, how the N word has been adapted and people use it, and it's no longer has the same meaning, and the meaning is changed by the people who it was used to denigrate. And I just think that those are the kinds of little implants that they do in these shows that I think make it special,
Right.
because it takes you to a place where you can draw from in your own, like, history, your own experiences growing up in life. So that's one of the great things about the writing on this show. They take these themes, they take these ideas, they take these concepts, they unfold them in front of us in these different ways, like you said, using alien as the context, or space, or the future. And we get to kind of dissect these concepts in different ways and swallow them, and like, okay, there is a deeper meaning there, which I enjoy.
Yeah, I don't think I really made that connection when I first watched it. Or I don't remember if I did. I may have, but I certainly hung on every word this time. I was like, "Oh my God, that's perfect." I get, any adult that's watching that, I think, completely understands, what they're alluding to there. And it was kind of for them, it was like a moment of empowerment of saying, "Hey, we're taking this word from you," and it's like a rallying cry almost. They're like rallying around it, and now they've taken everything over, and it's a very empowering thought. Now obviously they've gone in kind of a sour direction from the perspective of the Federation, but in their perspective they rose above and they conquered, and it's pretty awesome.
They did, and they preserved their culture. They still exist, but like I said, watching their kind of story unfold reminded me so much of the synthetics and Picard. Just the fact they were kind of looking for the same peace of mind and ability to exist without um, being questioned or feeling threatened, right? But now we're watching the transition of these people. Um, Doing what was done to them back to the people that so it's like now as the Dominion gets stronger and these people are now starting to gain power in the systems, that they're looking to oppress other people,
Right.
and it was oppression that they were escaping from, and it was acceptance that they were looking for, and now it's the opposite. So I think that once again, that's the same kind of theme that we're seeing playing out with the synthetics.
Yeah, that's also a human nature thing. Throughout history, there'll be, the oppressed becomes the oppressor. Whether it was back in the Roman days or the Greek days or Byzantine empires or whatever it is, like things kind of have a way of flip flopping. And to take your analogy one step further, that I hadn't considered until you mentioned it.
Yeah.
Another similarity between the synthetics and the changelings is that at the very end of Picard series, remember, he becomes, spoiler everybody, spoiler, plug your ears for a few seconds.
Spoiler alert.
He becomes a synthetic at the very end, right?
Mm-hmm.
He dies and he goes into that golem body, or golem, whatever it is. My precious. Right, that's the guy. Stupid fat habits. Right, that's what he says.
Very good. This guy is a world class voice impersonator.
I can only do like 4. I just look for any way that I can sneak him in. I'm like, okay, Gollum, Worf, Picard. Don't ask me to do anything.
No, you're world class, and you're very humble about it. But
thanks.
I love listening to your voice impressions. I think you're great at it.
Thanks. My parents hate it. So, so anyway, so he becomes a synthetic after he goes into that Gollum body, and Odo, to follow your analogy, also comes and joins them and realizes he is one of them when they link too. So,
right. Which you talking about the liquid link that they did?
Right. So in both of these shows, the things that we thought were like the bad guys and the oppressor, the person that's going out and kind of seeking them kind of joins with them or becomes one of them,
Yeah, and is also kind of an outsider as well. So it almost is like I'm seeing them borrow a lot of his themes from DS9 and inserting them in Picard.
They'd be wise to do so.
They'd be wise to do so because they'd be using some of the best writing. I don't know about you, but one of the things that I found was interesting was when they told Odo that he was 1 out of 100 that were
Yes,
sent
I
out.
love that. Yeah.
And it just made me think of, like, I just couldn't help but think of the other 99 and where they ended up, where they ended up.
Right. So just as a refresher for the people listening in, because I do think you're right. That's such a great point. A really interesting story. Really interesting is they didn't want to go out and explore. It's too dangerous. They don't want to deal with it. So they made 100 little Odo babies, little baby Odos,
Right.
little Play-Doh balls, and they shot them out throughout the galaxy and gave them each kind of like a homing beacon, for them to naturally want to come back and to be drawn back to it. And if you'll remember, Odo when he would see that Omicron Nebula or whatever, he'd be like, "What's that?" So he was drawn to it.
Yeah.
And because of the wormhole, he's way early. He came 300 years earlier than they expected him. And even then they were saying like he was gone too long or something like that. So there's that weird dichotomy of he was gone too long, but he was here 300 years earlier than we expected.
Yeah. And that 300 years, it just made me, when that whole 300 years earlier, there was a exchange there where Odo says, "How long have I been gone?" And it just made me think, well, normally we just keep track of how long we were alive, and that's like how long we've been gone.
Yeah, dude. Don't you have a watch?
Yeah, like how long were you in the Cardassian, occupation, and where were you before that? And like how long was it?
Mm-hmm.
I think that would give you an idea. So it's like we don't know Odo's age.
Right.
And we also know that Odo can live a very long lifespan, right?
At least 300 and something years. We know
Right.
that for sure.
Exactly. So I thought that was interesting too, because we got a little bit about his lifespan. We got a little bit about how he's 1 out of 100, and there's other Odos out there. I wonder if they look exactly like him. If there's variations on how they look because they've all grown up in different environments. Those were the kind of curiosities that I had.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it was also good that Odo was dealing with this kind of identity crisis, but more so not understanding his powers, right? Because I think he was trying to turn into a rock, and he said, I still don't know what it's like to be a rock.
Right. And just one little thing I didn't like about that he did say how he tried to be a rock, but he didn't try to be Iran. And I was like, come on, dude, be fair about anyway, go on, sorry.
Yeah. We'll let that go.
I've been sitting on that one all week. I've been like, I'm like, when's he going to say it? Just say it.
Oh, man. I took the bait. So, yeah, I just don't know that, he didn't really, he had that breakthrough moment with the Arbizon Vulture, right? Where he's like, yeah, oh, man, I finally understand what it's like. But to me, I don't know. I just figured like when he was a mouse or when he was all these things that he understood that he was a mouse.
Right. Thanks for bringing me back to the mouse day.
Remember that mouse
really
episode?
Good. He was a really good actor. That thing knew its mark. It knew how to stand.
Yeah, he was looking to the left, look camera right.
The good old days.
That mouse never once looked directly into the camera. He was awesome.
And no problems with him on set. He was cool.
Yeah, I think he was a little bit overeating at the craft service, but other than that, he was on it.
There was no cheese to be found when that jerk was on set.
No cheese. So, but I mean, there were a lot of little things like that. I think this was almost an Odo episode in some ways to me. He was the standout star. We also had the Vorta kind of heavily featured in this.
Right, what was his name? Boroth.
Yeah, Borat's brother, Boroth. And
nice.
That's all I got.
Thank goodness.
So
shout out to Borat. Good knowledge.
Yeah.
Did you ever see Bruno, the kind of the second movie
I seen
by
it.
Sacha Baron Cohen?
I have.
That was
Actually, I like his movies at that time. He was coming out with some good movies. He made also The Dictator.
I didn't see The Dictator. That was the one I didn't see. I saw those first two, Bruno and Borat. Because Bruno was maybe the only movie that's ever made me physically react in a theater. Like actually, like physically, I like curled into a ball and like physically reacted. Anyway.
No, I didn't see either one of those in the theater. I saw them, on DVD and stuff like that.
Okay.
But they were definitely memorable.
So Borath, the Vorta. Oh, by the way, he didn't shoot lasers out of his chest. That was something I forgot to mention before, was that first Vorta named Eris. She was like, oh, by the way, I got psychokinetic powers. Just call me Cyclops or Magneto or whatever, Professor X. And she's like,
yeah.
Or Ken and Ryu of Street Fighter. She's like, Hadouken!
Hadouken.
But no other Vorta ever after that does that. So that was just some kind of.
So we never see Wei Yun do that as well, right? That's a one-off.
Yeah, it was a thing that supposedly was a mistake, that they didn't mean to have Eris do that, because then after that it never appears ever again. But anyway.
Yeah, I remember that they had, and they mentioned Eris, so she actually got a non-appearance mention in this one.
Very true.
I think it was Borath that said something about her, like he expected Eris, something to that degree.
So we've got about a minute left before our break here. What did you think of Borath? Let's just finish off on him, because we've always said it's kind of tough to be the first alien, that the actor that plays the first alien. But it's equally difficult, I would say, or maybe even more difficult, to be the second one. Because then you can't really create the alien anymore. You have to just kind of follow what that person started in just one episode. What did you think about that character? What do you think about the Vorta? Anything interesting, or just kind of fine?
Well, what I can say, while I was watching this Borath Vorta, it gave me an entirely new appreciation for how fantastic Jeffrey Combs' version of a Vorta is. And that's, that just goes to say, you put two guys, you put the same makeup on them, you give them the same blueprint on what the character's about or how the race of characters, aliens,
right,
behaves. And people take that information and interpret it however they do. And I wasn't super blown away by this Vorta's performance. I thought he was good at some points, and then other points I felt like he appeared a little weak to me. And weakness is nothing that I feel from Wei Yun's character.
Jeffrey Combs just chews up the scenery like nobody's business, right?
Like nobody's business, and he emanates this strength and this confidence, and he's just totally in control of everything. And magical. In this particular Vorta, this Vorta is more like I don't know. It's just he didn't do it for me the same way, and so it just makes you really respect the guys that do it so well.
Right. We got to hit our break, but it really tells us why Jeffrey Combs was invited back for a second episode and a third and a fifth and a 10th and a 20th or whatever it was, because probably once they caught that lightning in a bottle, they're like, oh, we got to find a way to use him again.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So we're going to come right back. We're just going to always sing Jeffrey Combs' praise probably forever. We'll be right back with a super quick break on The Seventh Rule.